We landed in Seoul, and then some troop carriers picked us up and took us to the Air Force Base, which was Kimpo, which was about 20 miles from Seoul. It was all boarded up. There was no lights. It was dark when we went through there at night, and when we looked around, all we could see was just things boarded up. There was no businesses. It was a war zone.
Ask a Vet is dedicated to documenting and preserving veteran stories in their own words on their own terms before their stories are gone forever. Each episode is an unfiltered conversation about who they were before service during war and their adjustment to coming home. If you believe these stories matter, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your support helps us preserve the voices of those who served. Ask a Vet is proud to partner with Utah Honor Flight, part of the National Honor Flight Network, giving veterans the trip of a lifetime to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials built in their honor. Every flight is free to veterans and made possible by generous donors. To learn more or support the mission, visit utahhonorflight.org or find your local hub at honorflight.org. And now back to the show.
My name's Richard Colborn. I was born August the 11th, 1933, in a small rural community back in southwestern Pennsylvania. One of the 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, and graduated from high school back there, and not a lot of work in the area that I lived in, and I looked around, tried to find work, and couldn't find any, so I decided, well, I think I'll go to the military, and so I joined the military in September of 1951.
What was going on at that time in the world?
Korean War was going on, and I had no idea whether I'd go there or not. I just joined the Air Force and was a general recruit, and they sent me just basic, and they sent me to a technical school, which taught me the communication expertise that I needed. So I was a communications guy for the Air Force.
Why Air Force? Did you consider anything else?
No, I wasn't interested in shooting out of the ditches and things and killing people. But I thought, well, the Air Force, I'll just have a job there, and so that's why I joined the Air Force.
Okay. And what was boot camp like?
It was a learning experience in that I learned to follow orders very carefully, and I learned a lot about leadership. I found out that they go together.
And then where did you go to technical school at?
I went to technical school out in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Institute of Technology. I went there after I completed my military 4 years, and signed up, became an electrical engineer, and changing point in my life, really.
Okay. When did you realize you were going to go to Korea? Then how did that happen?
I learned it when I was in boot camp for training. That's where they made the assignments, and then when I went to F.E. Warren Air Force Base up in Wyoming, that's when we had the assignments that we were all going to Korea, the whole crew I was with.
And what did you do for the Air Force?
I was a teletype communications specialist. We sent messages all over the world on military matters. Some of it was just weather reports. Some of it was highly classified material that went from one Air Force base to another. And they made me a shift leader when I got over there, and I wasn't there very long. I don't know why they picked me, but so I was a shift supervisor in a communications center in Korea.
Tell me about where did you ship out from? You went over by boat?
Yes, started out in California, and we got on the boat in California, went up along the coast, and we were to pick up a bunch of Army guys in Seattle. So we boarded them, and then we left Seattle and went to Yokohama, Japan.
What was it like being on the boat?
It was a mess.
If you or someone you know isn't getting the VA benefits you've earned, click the link in our description. We've teamed up with a group of experts that help veterans build stronger VA claims and get the benefits they deserve. Click the link in our description for a free consultation.
Probably half of us were just sicker than dogs because the ocean was pretty rough at the time getting out of there. But after a couple of days, everybody got used to it. We got our sea legs, and it was crowded. We had bunk beds that were like 4 high. That's where we slept. We ate standing up. You never sat down. When you'd go to eat, you'd go to the mess hall, and you stood at a table and had your food. And so it was different.
Was the food any good?
Food was fine. Yeah, I had no complaints about the food.
Did they have stuff for you to do on the boat, or was it mostly just free time?
They had some entertainment. They'd show movies up on deck. Anybody that wanted to do that. Otherwise, it was just sit there and look over the rail and see if we could see anything else and watch the birds flying by. The birds followed the ships to get the garbage that the ships dumped. So,
was there any kind of mood on the ship? Were people scared to go over there?
No, I don't think anybody was scared. They were looking forward to it with anticipation. None of the friends that I had were concerned about it. They were anxious to get over there and get with it.
Is that how you felt?
Yeah, I was comfortable.
Okay, so where did you land over there?
We landed in Yokohama, and then we went to a place called Iwakuni. And Iwakuni, we stayed there and did some processing and so on, the paperwork that you have to go through. And they put us on a C-119 aircraft. It was there were no seats on it. There was some along the sides, but most of us slept on our luggage was in the middle. Then they had some seats on the side. And so that was an interesting ride in that ship. We slept on our duffel bags to get there.
And then where did you end up?
We landed in Seoul, and then some troop carriers picked us up and took us to the Air Force Base, which was Kimpo, which was about 20 miles from Seoul.
And describe Seoul. You said it was different than what you imagined.
Seoul was like an abandoned place. It was all boarded up. There was no lights. It was dark when we went through there at night. And when we looked around, all we could see was just things boarded up. There was no businesses, nothing like that. It was a war zone.
And you said you were 20 miles outside of Seoul,
yes.
Basically? And what was the base like that you were at?
It was a decent base. We all lived in huts. The huts had wooden floors, and then they had a framework, and then they had a tent that draped over the framework so it protected us from the weather. We had a little pot-bellied stove that burned fuel oil to keep us warm in the winter. And there was 6 of us to a tent.
Y'all get along pretty good?
Yeah, we did. We all worked for the same part of the AACS, Airways and Air Communication Air Force unit, and some worked in the tower, and I worked in the teletype room.
Were the planes and runway right by you there?
They were close by, yes.
And what were the planes you had out there?
the ones that we saw mostly were F-86 fighter bombers, and they were right next to the place where I worked. The comm center was not too close to where we slept. But yeah, we saw a lot of F-86s landing and taking off all the time.
And what did your day consist of there? What did they have you do every day?
I was running teletype machines, and we had people who created these tape. It was tape, and you ran the tape through a machine, and that sent a message to wherever it was addressed to.
Wasn't like were you typing or?
Yeah, you had to type to make the tape.
Okay.
So you typed and you produced this tape, and then you ran the tape through a machine. The machine read the holes in the tape, and that's how they communicated with other Air Force locations.
And how many hours a day would you work? How did that work?
6 hours on and 12 hours off, 7 days a week.
Wow. Was there a constant flow of messages going out all the time?
All the time, yeah.
What was your kind of initial take when you got over there?
I was kind of taken back by the fact they put me in charge. I was just an 18-year-old kid. I didn't expect to be in charge of anything, but they made me a shift supervisor, and so I kind of learned on the job and did the best I could.
Did you ever did you ever get bombed there or any of that happen at that base?
We had the North Koreans never bombed us with anything of any. They had planes that were like Piper Cubs, and they'd sneak in on a low level, and they'd throw hand grenades out. That was the bombing, and we knew they were coming, and we'd get an alert, and we had trenches around. And we had to get up and get out of bed if we happened to be in our thing and put our hats on and go get in those ditches, and then they'd clear it. They never, it wasn't real bombing though.
Yeah. Well, what else? Give me some other stories that happened while you were there.
Well, a lot of boozing going on. A lot of the men, that was part of when you had 12 hours off. Yeah, they had an airman's club, and they had beer. So I wasn't much of a beer drinker, so I didn't do much of that. But we'd get together and play cards, blackjack. I was a blackjack expert. And occasionally, some of us would get brave, and we'd on our 12 hours off, and we'd go out and walk around the countryside. And I remember one trip, I had a cousin that was he was in the Army in a base just south, it was a good ways south. Anyway, I got my gun. I had an M1 gun. They gave everybody guns. They didn't give us any ammunition. We had to buy the ammunition from the Marines. The Marines sold us the ammunition. But anyway, I somehow I wrangled a couple of days off, and I just went out and got on the road, and I hitchhiked a ride down to where he was. And I went in and visited with him and his troop of buddies, and they treated me nice. They fed me and gave me a place to sleep, and the next day I went back out on the road and thumbed the ride back to Kimpo.
On that trip, did you see many South Koreans at all, or no?
Yeah, they're all over the place. They were just people. There were no factories or anything, so they lived kind of off of the American troops that were there, and we employed a lot of them.
Were they grateful to Americans at the time?
I think so.
It's probably hard to communicate, wasn't it?
They treated me very well. We had one of their boys he was probably Lee, his name was. He's probably 10 or 12 years old. he took care of our hut, our 6 men, and he kept the place clean and made sure we had oil for our furnace, and he took our clothing to his mom. His mom would do our laundry for us, and we got invited to their home at one time and got to see how a Korean War veteran himself, the guy, the father, how they were living, and it was a lean-to up against a bombed-out factory wall. But they treated us with respect, and they were so grateful we went there. We always took things with us when we went there to their home.
When you were there, did you have a good idea of how the war was going, or was it more just you were doing your job and it was kind of isolated from that?
It was pretty much at a stalemate at that point. There wasn't. We were just south of the 38th parallel, which was where the armistice eventually was signed. But we could hear the guns going off and see flashes in the sky, but nothing that ever hit the air base. We never were attacked by a bunch of crazy North Koreans, so it was not. I never felt threatened or unsafe at all.
You did R&R?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I had a couple of R&Rs to Tokyo. We ran some kind of a competition. I don't remember what it was, how efficiently we did our work, I guess. But anyway, me and some of my group, we were awarded 2. We went to Tokyo twice.
A week? Is that how long you were there?
No, we were only there for maybe 3 days.
What was Tokyo like back then?
Tokyo was not too bad. It was, we stayed in a nice hotel, and there was decent restaurants, and ate a lot of chicken. They had chicken. I didn't care for the Korean food, but as I remember, they had an elevated railroad system that to move people around, and it was kind of archaic, but it served the purpose of moving people from point A to point B. And I rode it a couple of times just to have the experience.
Mail. How often would you get mail? What did that?
The mail came in every week, and it was okay. My mother wrote to me every day, and so I had mail to read all the time.
Would people try and send packages, or was that not?
Yeah, they were allowed to send us packages. That's how we got the food for my houseboy and his.
Oh.
So they'd send stuff, and we'd take it to their house.
What was the food like on base?
Food was decent. It was decent food, military food. I was used to it.
So how did it end over there for you?
It ended for me when my year was up, and the war was still going on, and we were talking with the North Koreans. They were trying to set up an armistice. So I left there in January of 1953, and then later that year in the spring, I think they signed the armistice and the fighting stopped.
And you came home by ship as well, right?
Came home by ship, yeah. Same route. Caught an airplane to Tokyo and then got on a ship. And it was a smaller ship, and there were fewer men, and we could sit down and eat, and it was... And the same thing, though, they showed movies at night, and that was about it. You can't do too much on a ship. So
yeah. How long was the trip on the boat?
Going over was a week, a full week. Coming back, we made it in about 5 days.
Wow. And you came into San Francisco?
Yes.
What was that like?
That was a wonderful experience, coming underneath the Bay Bridge and seeing San Francisco there. And I think that It kind of hits you right in the heart, boy. We were all glad to be home. So we were in California. We went to a place called Yerba Buena Island and did the processing that was necessary. And then they turned us loose and we all went home. One of them took leave.
At this point, you're 19?
Yes.
Okay. You're still young. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And then you went home for how long, and then you had to report back?
I had about a month. They give you a month every year, and I knew where I was going. I was going to Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C., but I was able to go home, visit with my family and that before I went there.
Was it hard to go back? It must have been hard to go back to Andrews, was it, or after you just got home?
Not really. It was quite an experience. That Andrews is, as you know, one of the main Air Force bases, and that's where the president and everybody flies in and out of. So.
And how long were you there, serving there?
I was there about a year and a half, and I worked in a very modern communication center. And the technology was the same. We had people that typed and made these tapes and put the tapes in a tape reader, and the message went flying off to Frankfurt, Germany, or wherever else the Air Force wanted to send messages back and forth. So,
what's the most interesting thing that happened there to you? The memory that you have from that?
Well, I got to be another supervisor in that place, and the best thing for me, I got promoted. I came from Korea as a private first class, and I left there as a sergeant. So I got promoted twice.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and what happened after that?
Well, I was having a little trouble, girl trouble. My family, I was in D.C., my home is near Pittsburgh, and so I had a lot of time to go home. And I had a girlfriend, and it was fun dealing with her for a while, but she was kind of demanding, and I started having an upset stomach. And I went to the base doctor, and he said, "Well, there ain't nothing wrong with you." He said, "I think you need a change of venue." He said, "If I were you," he said, "I'd ask for another assignment." So I went in to the office, and I said, "I'd like an overseas assignment." So they didn't fool around too long, and they come back and said, "Okay, you're going to French Morocco, North Africa." And it was a good experience in D.C. I loved it there. I mean, I got a lot of time to look around, but going to North Africa, that was exciting too. There was lots of natives that we worked with and worked on our base there. It was the same deal, though. We had the air base where the planes, and they were bombers. They were had these big long wings, and the wings were so long they kind of flapped, and they actually had little wheels out on the end so they didn't hit the ground. And anyway, they were fighter bombers. They were bombers mostly, but they landed there. That was the home base for these. I don't know the name of them, what they called them, but anyway, the living accommodations were about the same. We had a little more substantial place to sleep. It was kind of almost like log cabin type living, and we had the same schedule. I was 6 hours on, 12 hours off, 7 days a week. No other days off.
You traveled around a little bit there, I would assume, or no?
We did. I got up to Tangier. One of the guys that I worked with, a good friend of mine, somehow he had a car there. And he put together a party, and we went up to Tangier, and we spent some time in Tangier. And that was, well, it was beautiful there on this bay, and right across the strait there was Europe. So we had a great time there, and back home, and we did do R&Rs. I got 2 R&Rs out of that place. I went to Rome, Italy. They gave us like a week off, and I remember thinking, well, oh, gee, I'm going to Rome, Italy. I need some nice clothes. So I I had 2 suits made, and so we went well dressed. We didn't wear our military garb at all. So that was Rome, Italy, and then the second one was Madrid, Spain, and that was a nice place to go. The thing I remember most about Madrid, there's guys on every corner with machine guns, and I'm not sure who was protecting whom from who, but I thought, this is not America. We have policemen, but they don't walk around with machine guns strapped to their body. So anyway, I finished my my tenure in North Africa, and it sent me back to New York, and that's where I was discharged.
And then what did you do after the military then?
I took a job. I went back home. One of my uncles thought I should go to work for a while, and so he got me a job working in a glass factory as a quality control examiner. Yeah, that's what I was. Anyway, I didn't particularly want the job, but the uncle was doing me a favor, so I took it. So I did. I saved some money, and I got with some of my friends, and we decided we need to go to school. We need to get out of here. This is small town country living, and we weren't going anywhere. So he said, let's go to college. We found out about this university or Indiana Technical University. And they were catering to discharged veterans, and they had a really good program, and we 3 of us went out there and signed up for it, and were accepted, and I quit my job and went to Indiana and went to school, became an electrical engineer.
4 years? How long did it take?
3 years. It was a little like the military. You just went straight through, no breaks. You went in the summer, and you could cut the 4 down to 3 if you did that, and I did that.
You enjoy it?
I did. It was a good program. I learned how to become a very young guy that went around the country from a company. I went to work for Westinghouse Electric, and they made me a field engineer, and my job was to travel anywhere that they were building equipment. And I went there to start the equipment up. I'd make sure it got installed properly, and then I got it working, and went on to the next job. And we mostly did power plant work, big power plants. The control systems, this was before computers, but it still required a big room full of control equipment that allowed us to control the furnaces that burned and made the heat. And then we had the generators that generated that made the steam, and anything that was electric, Westinghouse did it. So,
how many countries did you end up in over your career?
Well, I'd have to think about it. I guess the first after I joined Westinghouse, the first one I went to was in Turkey. and we sold equipment to a refinery that they were building. And so they sent me, they asked for volunteers. That was crazy. I volunteered all the time. Anyway, my boss let me know that all of us, the crew that worked for him, they were looking for somebody to go to Istanbul. I said, I'll go to Istanbul. Because I always heard that companies like people that are willing to go and do. And so I went there, and I guess I traveled all over the country down in New Mexico. I worked down there for a couple of years building power plants on the Indian reservation. I was married at that point. I'd come to Utah and worked for U.S. Steel installing equipment that Westinghouse sold them. Met a young girl from Provo and married her and dragged her off, and she followed me everywhere I went. We weren't married too long, and then the next big adventure we had, we went to Cairo, Egypt, and she went with me. And we had a little white poodle dog, and a small one, a lap dog. We were able to take the dog with us. And so we had a great time. But thinking offhand, those were the two major assignments overseas. When I got in later on in life, when I got into marketing, I traveled everywhere. I was all through the Far East and Europe and anywhere Westinghouse was selling product. The customers, they didn't believe the salesman. The salesman telling them how good everything was and how great we were going to treat them. And so they found out that I was a guy that was volunteering for stuff all the time. So the sales guy would ask me, hey, Dick, I need you out. Can you come out to California for a while? We got a customer that they want to talk to an engineer. So I'd jump in the car and away I'd go, or if I was somewhere else, I'd fly. And my wife went with me almost everywhere I went. She lived it up in the hotels, and I'm off doing my thing. But yeah, I traveled a lot throughout the Rocky Mountain West. Everywhere there was a power plant or something, I'd be there doing the service work.
Sounds like they treated you well.
They treated me well. I eventually became a manager, and the management job kept me in Pittsburgh for a while, and then they needed a guy in Chicago, and it was a promotion, and I'd become a manager. And so they called me into the boss's office and said, we need you to go out there, and we need somebody to run the Midwestern region and supervise all the engineers that worked in 3 or 4 states there. And I said, okay, I'll go. Went home and talked to my wife. She said, yeah, let's go. So I went to Chicago for 5 years and had a great time. Enjoyed my wife loved it out there. Left Chicago and they called me to come back to Pittsburgh. They said, we need somebody back here to work on a job in the office and then take it to the field. You work on it and you design it and we supply it, and then you go and you start it up. And I did. And I was going that way. So it was a lot of moving around.
Sounds like you enjoyed it.
I'd have to say it was an enjoyable time. I learned to love every place they ever sent me. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed the people, and even living on the Indian reservation was good. So.
Well, sounds like you had a good attitude everywhere you went.
Well, I tried to keep a good attitude about things, and when we went to Cairo, a little bit of backtracking on Cairo. When we were in Cairo, I was there to start up 3 power plants, 3 different units that burned coal, made steam, drove a generator. And my wife and dog were with me, and we were about halfway through the job when her mother was in an accident up in Salt Lake City, and she was busted up pretty badly. And we managed to get a telephone call to her, and we talked to her, and we said, maybe we need to come home. And she said, no, you guys stay there. You got a job to do. She said, I'm fine. They're taking care of me. Well, about 2 weeks later, we get a telegram. She died. And Westinghouse again, there was no question. They said, we'll pack you up. You're out of here. You're going home. So they got me out of town, and I came back and started the stateside jobs. So, but anyway, I did bring my wife back to get her buried when she passed away back in Pittsburgh, and she's at rest here in Utah. She loved Utah.
What? Give me your takeaway from your time in Korea. What's your looking back on it? What did you learn from it? What do you think about your time over there?
Well, I think I learned it about people mostly. I mean, I worked with men and women from all over the United States and made good friends with them, and I respected the work that they did, even though I was getting tabbed to be the supervisor. They were the ones doing all the work. And I just was their overseer and watching and helping and filling in when I needed to. But I think the biggest thing I learned was to respect people and to help them when they needed help, and to do it in a way that it wasn't just he's the boss and I'm the slave. No, we were all together in a team, and we worked together. So I made a lot of good friends, and some of them I still stay in contact with.
Wow. Well, thank you. Sounds like you've lived an interesting life, Richard.
Well, I have. It's been a good life, and I have no regrets whatsoever. And I'll be 93 come August, and that's about as long as my family. I had a grandfather that lived to be 93, so maybe I'll catch up with him.
Well, you're in great shape. You're in great shape. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it a little bit, and I have kept a diary of all this stuff, so it's for my progenitors. Someday will read this stuff and say, "Grandpa did all that stuff, went all those places."
Yeah, that's pretty rare to go all those places,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I was in the Colosseum in Rome, and I was in the Cheops Pyramid in Cairo, and not too many people get to do those things.
Of all the places you went, what's the most memorable place you went?
I'd have to say probably Cairo, because my wife was with me, and we lived among the natives. We had an apartment, and we became friends with some were native Egyptians, a young couple, and we befriended them, and they were very kind to us. And then we met a couple that had a couple little children. They were from Switzerland, and they had a car. So when they'd go off to the Suez Canal for a weekend, they'd invite us to go with them. So I think the total experience is just one of appreciating the people that we work with and around, and the people that work for us, and how to treat them, and treat them with respect. And we're all in this together.
It's good advice. Good thought.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for letting me talk.
Yeah, that was great. If you or someone that you know isn't getting the VA benefits that you've earned, please click this link. We've teamed up with a group of experts that can help veterans build stronger VA claims and get the benefits they deserve. Please click this link for a free consultation.